Words are only as good as their definitions. Faulty definitions will inherently lead to faulty understandings, and vice versa. This is especially true when a word and its definition are contentious. There is no word in any language which has been the subject of as much conflict both in the realm of ideas and in the physical world as the word God. In that sense, it's a dangerous topic to address, but it's also an important topic for the same reason. We have a choice on how we handle this topic. We have the option of moving this conversation to a new frequency, but we also need to be aware of our current condition. There are deep emotions tied to the word God and the definition that people give that word, and it's very easy for discussions to degrade. As such, I request that we all make an effort to keep the interactions in the comments rational and civil. When discussing the topic of God, or any other word for that matter, there are three elements that come into play. These elements are often mixed up or merged incorrectly. First is the reality itself. What is actually there in the real world? This is completely independent of our opinions or even our experiences. Reality is what it is. Second is our subjective experience of that reality. It's important to understand that our experiences may have correlations with reality, but they aren't reality itself. An object that you see as green is not actually green. You experience the color green because the object in question reflects green light and absorbs other frequencies. That green light then hits the sensors in the back of your eyes, which set off a chain reaction of electrical signals that travel through the optic nerve to the brain. In the brain, an entirely new set of signals are set off as neural networks are triggered. These networks are slightly different for each individual, and they change over the course of your lifetime. It is the storm of electrical activity in our brain that we experience, not the actual causal phenomenon. The third element is the description. This is the web of words that we weave to put an idea into context. In other words, language. We can say that a plant is green, and this works because we can look at something in the real world and agree on the experience of green. But the descriptions themselves are only pointers. Our descriptions of reality are not reality itself, and they cannot encapsulate reality even in its simplest forms. Unfortunately, most humans operate under the mistaken presumption that they do. This leads to a great deal of conflict and confusion, especially when those descriptions have gotten out of sync with the objective reality. Logic is the art of aligning our descriptions of the world as closely as possible with our observations of reality. There are many layers of logic, just as there are many layers of reality. Sometimes these layers seem contradictory, but this is usually due to incomplete or faulty logic. For example, the standard model of physics gives us a pattern that works consistently on the level of physical objects in space, but it breaks down at the quantum level. An entirely different logical framework is required to make sense of the subatomic world. Scientists are always looking to unify these layers of logic. This is no easy task. Sometimes this isn't a problem of missing facts, but rather a question of perspective. And quite often the distortions in our perspective are caused by language itself. For example, let's consider our concept of the Big Bang. The standard description goes something like this. In the beginning, there was a singularity. The singularity contained all of the energy of the universe. It was incredibly dense. So dense, in fact, that there was no motion, and therefore there was no time. This should be interpreted as a literal statement, since Einstein's theory of relativity shows us that time, space, and movement are all part of a single fabric. The equations that he used to demonstrate this are not just abstract, but are in fact used on a daily basis in modern technologies. For example, GPS satellites have to account for the distortion in time caused by their movement, or their coordinates would drift by an average of 7 miles per day. This phenomenon is referred to as time dilation. So in the singularity, there is no time. But in the next sentence, you'll hear people say, and then there was the Big Bang, and time and space came into existence. And this is where we begin to hit a wall with our language. If there is no time in the singularity, then it cannot be placed within our linear time-space continuum, meaning you can't use words like before or after when referring to it. If the singularity was before the Big Bang, then it is within time. This is hard for people to get their head around because we're conditioned to think of everything in terms of before or after. But when talking about the true nature of the universe, especially at the quantum level, these concepts break down completely. As complex as this may seem, there's a way to deal with this conceptually. Singularity isn't before or after anything. The singularity is now. In fact, it's always now. It always has been, and it always will be. The most accurate watch in the world would just have the word now written across the front. Since time and space are a single fabric, and there is no time in the singularity, then there is no space in the singularity either. There is no distance. There is no separation. It cannot be observed from the outside because there is no outside. It is timeless, formless, omnipresent, and eternal, and it contains everything that has existed or will ever exist. We are not separate from this, nor could we ever be separated from it. There is nowhere we could go that would be outside of it. Viewed from this standpoint, the Big Bang, and therefore everything in this universe, is best understood as an expression of the singularity. This This way of looking at it also allows for multiple universes with multiple beginnings to exist side by side without contradiction. So how does one reconcile this timeless state with the relative universe that we perceive and interact with on a daily basis? Well, think of it like a DVD, or a DVD-ROM if you remember those. A DVD can hold multiple movies with complete storylines, each with a beginning, a drama, and an end. When you hold that DVD in your hand, you can see that all of the data for all of these moments coexist simultaneously. However, if you put them in a DVD player, you can experience that same data as a linear time progression. Likewise, we perceive time and space because our consciousness is navigating the time-space continuum. But viewed from the perspective of the singularity, every moment of your life from birth to death coexists in a single moment, the now. This has profound implications for our concept of identity, because it means that we are all expressions of this same source, and that in a very literal, absolute sense, we are one. This description I just gave is my definition for the word God. Obviously, you don't have to use that word if you don't want to. The word itself is irrelevant, just a point of reference, but the definition points to something worth looking at. Often people ask why I refer to this as God, because at first it sounds like an impersonal force, just an elaboration of our current view of the singularity with no intelligence or consciousness. However, this would be a misconception. We ourselves are expressions of this singularity, and we are conscious, and there are countless conscious life forms just on this planet alone. Furthermore, it would be beyond ludicrous to assume that this planet is the only reservoir of life and consciousness in the universe, or in the scores of other universes alongside ours. It should therefore be abundantly evident that consciousness is an inherent characteristic that is present in the singularity. And given an infinite number of expressions, it should go without saying that there are levels of consciousness expressed in that singularity that are much higher than our own. These are just the logical implications of the description of the singularity when you stop trying to place the timeless within time. But even this expanded description is really only a pointer. An effective description points to an experience, and the experience points to an inconceivable reality. You can experience the singularity without the description, and many do. Experience the singularity, you say? That's pretty far-fetched. Why? This is the root of what we are. This is the root of what everything is. It's really just a question of experiencing the present moment on a deeper level. Humans have been doing that for thousands of years. There are many different words for that experience. There are many subjective interpretations of it, and there's many ways of arriving, but there are common threads within all of them. Some would say, so what? What difference does it make to interpret time and space in this manner? How is this applicable in the real world? Well, to start with, the experience of a unified field of existence has a profound effect on consciousness. My personal experiences on the matter are obviously anecdotal and do not prove anything. However, I will say that they altered my awareness irrevocably. I never again looked at the world the same way, and a lot of my long-held beliefs had to be dropped by the wayside. My fear of death disappeared, not because of some promise of a heavenly afterlife or even reincarnation, but rather because the eternal now, that singularity that I just described, makes the annihilation of the individual self irrelevant. The destruction of the individual self is only frightening to the degree that you believe that linear time is absolute. But from the perspective of the singularity, your birth, your life, and your death coexist in that single eternal moment. Nothing is ever lost. The singularity is here, right now. We are part of it. It's where we come from, and it's what we are when form is gone. Realizing this isn't a question of waking up, like flipping a switch on or off. Awareness is more accurately viewed as a spectrum. The more we move our sense of identity away from the linear time-space description to that of the eternal singularity of the now, the wider and more interesting our experience of reality becomes. And to the degree that you connect on that level, fixed beliefs and rigid concepts become less and less necessary. In fact, viewed from this perspective, it becomes clear that many human beliefs, especially those pertaining to spirituality, are actually obstacles and hindrances which hold us back from the experience itself or distort our interpretations of it. The more awake we are, the less we cling to our preconceived notions. Again, I'd like to request that you remain calm and rational in the comments. This will be greatly facilitated if you watch this video again and research the topics mentioned rather than arguing from a point of ignorance. These are ideas that challenge our entire concept of reality, so it's only natural that it could take some time to process. It should be clear, however, that getting angry and defensive are not productive reactions. It's impossible to understand a new idea when we're actively at war against that idea. If you'd like more content like this, please remember to like the video and subscribe to this channel, Storm Clouds Gathering on YouTube. For bonus content, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/StormCloudsGathering, on Twitter at Collapse Updates, and of course our website, stormcloudsgathering.com.